Hi, I'm Patrick Dunnican. At Gibbons, we believe that citizens need to be informed about the complex issues that affect their lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, working for great public schools for every child. Investors Bank. PSE&G, committed to improving New Jersey's economy and strengthening its communities. New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship. The law firm of Gibbons, P.C. Health First New Jersey. COHNDREZNICK, providing accounting, tax, and advisory services for more than 90 years. And by NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan. Turn a dream into a degree.
This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, man.
I get that a lot. I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. This is One-on-One. You know, this is a segment that is valuable no matter where you're watching us, but particularly down at the Jersey Shore. The question is, if we're going to rebuild after Hurricane Sandy, how should we rebuild? The gentleman you're about to see on camera thinks about that a lot, talks about it and teaches about it and helps others. He is Urs Gauchat, Dean of the College of Architecture and Design at NJIT. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
NJIT is a leading academic institution, leader in this field. A couple of initiatives, several initiatives that you're involved in at NJIT that help deal with this question. What are they?
Well, I think there's one close at hand, and I think it's very important that our students, or in fact students from all over the country, have an opportunity to see what can happen in such a storm. But just to go sightsee doesn't do much good.
Right.
So during spring break, we're offering them an opportunity to do something other than getting inebriated.
Is that the Build Jersey Strong initiative?
This is an initiative to have an alternative spring break. So instead of imbibing too much somewhere in the sun and coming back and claiming that you had a wonderful time regardless of whether or not you did, we're saying, why don't you come with us, go to the shore and do something positive. You can clean up, you can do assessments, you can paint, you can build porches. And so for a week, we're inviting students from all over the country to come and actually help. The second aspect of that...
Well, stay on this. These are students who are studying architecture.
These are students, any students. We'll take any students from any college or any university.
But didn't NJIT do some of this after Hurricane Katrina as well?
After Katrina, we had 125 students of our students that went down there. And we've been working with Tulane to try and find solutions for it here.
Right.
And they are going to send a contingent up here to return the favor. Our students learned a great deal there, and I expect they will learn a great deal on this occasion. They learn that one of the most difficult things is to get people who are used to a certain way of living to change that attitude somewhat, so we can build in a way that makes it possible to recover quickly from an event like Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. It is very likely that we will get more of these events more often. So it makes sense that anybody connected with architecture, engineering, building, or just students in general learn about what to do in a way that makes it unlikely that we will have the same catastrophic impact.
Be more specific. What do we need to do?
Well, we had about 350,000 houses damaged or destroyed. To put it in perspective, during Katrina, it was 275,000. So it had less of an impact. We all remember Katrina. And I think here it's very much more distributed. Everybody's seen it on TV, but they haven't actually been there on the ground and seen the devastation and what it does to people's lives. there's also the wrong perception that only the wealthy live on the shore. There are many communities with poor people. There are many communities with people who really have no other choice. They want to go back to where they grew up, where they lived all their lives, and they have every right to do so.
But what do we, let's be more specific in this sense. If we are to rebuild, how do we do it? And I know there are a whole range of possibilities as to how we do it, but is one of the things we're trying to teach here is that you have to build the first floor higher? Or is that too simplistic?
That is a bit simplistic.
It is.
And I think we are trying to figure out how you build in the future, which gets me to another initiative.
Sure.
So I think the spring break one is an important one because you can participate and make a difference. The second initiative is that we have one of the largest schools of architecture in the country, and about 450 students are working right now on different solutions to the problems of how do you build municipal buildings. Obviously, a municipal building during a catastrophic event becomes the place where everyone congregates safely.
What's that
so how do
initiative
you do that?
called?
I beg your pardon?
What's that initiative called?
We're just developing prototypes, and we are trying to come up with prototypes for different typologies. So you have municipal buildings, you have commercial buildings, you have housing, you have schools, and so on. And for each of these types of buildings, we're trying to come up with solutions that try and mitigate the effects of high winds, water, and so on. And clearly we can do much better than we have done. And one of the difficulties, obviously, is to convince people who are used to a certain way of living or building that there is a better way. So that leads to the third piece of this initiative. And the third piece is that we want to have a Center for Resilient Design.
A Center for Resilient Design.
Correct.
What does that do?
That will be a clearinghouse for information, the most up-to-date information of what you actually do to make a community less susceptible to these kinds of events. So if you're let's say, Steve,
you're a contractor.
A contractor, or you're the mayor of a city,
Sure.
or you are somebody affected by this, or potentially affected by it, where do you turn now? Where do you find out what are the options? So it's
for how to build.
How to build, how to plan, how to do things in a way that is going to have less impact. And so we are trying to provide a place where people can turn to and find out what are their options. And then the political process will decide which of these options they choose. We do not get involved with that, so we're totally neutral. And it's one of these wonderful occasions where, as a state university, we can use the expertise we have and make that be a benefit to everybody.
That's an important role for an academic institution to provide independent, objective, researched information.
Yes.
In such a highly charged situation like this, isn't it?
Yes. I think many people are suspicious. And as a university, we are neither Republican nor Democrat.
You have no horse in this race.
We have nothing to gain by one solution over another. But we do have the ability to provide neutral information, and then the communities can decide to do with it as they please, and we will also help them. We have worked with many of these communities in the past. So what we are doing at the moment is, I think we have about 25 communities that have expressed an interest in working with us, and we will put something together that makes it a two-way street. So what we investigate and the research we do is going to be conditioned by what the communities want. And I think as a repository of the best solutions, best practices, it should help everybody.
You know what's so interesting is that people often see academic institutions, they'll use the term, a very hackneyed, overused term, ivory tower. This is anything but that. This is hands-on.
Yes.
Actively involved, engaged in providing valuable information. And I want to thank NJIT for being involved in that initiative. Urs Gauchat, who is the Dean of the College of Architecture and Design at NJIT. I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll continue the discussion with you and your colleagues, because building smart and building Jersey in a strong way after Hurricane Sandy is essential for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. One-on-one will continue right after this. It's so
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
Joe Della Fave, Executive Director of Ironbound Community Corporation. Good to see you, Joe.
Nice to see you, Steve. Thank you.
I want to make sure that people may have heard in the tri-state area that we're seeing the Ironbound community, but they don't exactly know what it is. Explain where it is, and what your organization is.
Sure. The Ironbound section is the easternmost part of Newark. So it's right east of the Amtrak Penn Station lines, bordered on the north by the Passaic River, on the east by the Passaic and Newark Bay, and on the south by Newark Airport. It's called the Ironbound because of this, the railroad tracks, which in fact encircle the community. There's one railroad track to the north, which is no longer there, but that's the origin of the name. Demographically, it's been the home to immigrant populations for generations. More recently, 60s, Portuguese, Spaniards, and in the last 15, 20 years, people from Central and South America, including Brazilians. Probably about 15 of the 50,000 people, 15,000 of the 50,000 currently arrived probably in the last 10, 15 years. 2 out of 3 people were foreign born in the Ironbound.
And your organization has been making a difference for how many years?
43. 1969, one of those. I grew up in the post-riot days of Newark, trying to build it from the inside out and support families and community development.
And there's so many, people talk about community organizations, and they can be so many different things. You're involved in housing. You're involved in, this is one of the things I find fascinating, along with Investors Bank, free tax preparation for people, low and moderate income individuals. Put that in perspective, because not only would these folks have a hard time getting their tax returns done, but talk about the money that goes back into the community.
Well, many of these tax returns are for low-income people who normally wouldn't file a tax return. So you have an earned income tax credit, which is available to them. Last year, in partnership with Investors Bank, operating out of Investors Bank, providing us with an entire floor, computer terminals, access to the internet, et cetera, we did 650 households, delivering nearly $2 million back into the community. Hundreds of millions of dollars are left on the table every year by people who don't file for these types of returns. This is, in our view, and view of many, one of the greatest anti-poverty programs and economic stimulus that you can imagine. $2 million more in purchasing power in a community than existed before.
How hard is it to serve a community where people speak so many different languages and come from so many different places around the world?
Well, you have to have appropriately developed cultural and linguistic programs. Nearly all of our staff are bi or trilingual, English, Spanish, Portuguese. Our materials are in such, our delivery of services. But we're not just providing Spanish and Portuguese and English services, we're also developing families in many different ways, including the proficiency to speak English.
For example?
So, for example, we provide ESL to families
English
in a variety of ways. English as a second language. So families who come into our early Head Start program, into our early childhood program, our after-school programs, we're providing services for those kids so that we can strengthen their educational opportunities, their healthy growth and development. But we're also providing services for their families in order to allow them to be stronger, whether it's parenting skills, teaching them how to speak English so that they can read and converse with their children and their children's teachers, providing them with financial literacy, and then maybe moving them even into our adult education college courses, which we provide as well. So it's a whole variety of services, holistically strengthening.
You know, it's interesting, Joe, we've worked together as we're seeing pictures of preschool and work going on in your organization. We've worked together in so many capacities, offline as well. You're part of our initiative with the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, talking about healthcare issues, which are critical, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's so interesting. I asked myself the question, people who head up nonprofits, I mean, we have a nonprofit, you have a nonprofit. We spend so much of our time, and again, for people watching us in Brooklyn or the Bronx or other parts of New Jersey around, I always ask myself, why would they care about what they're doing and what you're doing in the Ironbound? And I say to myself, one of the answers is that they might want to replicate what's going on, right? Could someone watching right now who doesn't have an organization like this in their community say, wait a minute, I want to do that? A, could they? And B, what the heck would it take? Because somebody did it. A group of people did this.
Right.
And you know, I grew up in a family where my dad started this in 1971 in a different community in Newark, just a few miles away. So, I mean, I've seen this, you've lived it, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody's doing it.
Absolutely. It obviously takes a great deal of technical capacity, you know, for an organization as large as ours or the North Ward Center to be successful.
My father's place, yeah.
Your dad's place, bless him. But it starts with people who are passionate about their community, have a vision of where they want to head to, and now begin to put into place the pieces that allow them to get there. So I think vision and passion is as important as anything else. It doesn't produce the outcomes.
That's right.
But it generates the beginning of something vital and energetic and dynamic. And I think that's as important as anything else. Our staff are technically proficient. You know, they're culturally and linguistically proficient and appropriate. They're also professional. Many of them come from the community, and they care so deeply about what they do. It takes all of those ingredients, I think, to produce the outcomes you're looking for. Early childhood, we want children ready and eager to learn by the time they get into kindergarten. We do that. When it gets to adult education or family services, we want people who can actually move families along with a family development plan. When it gets to advocacy, we want to be successful in advocating for policies, whether it's land use and zoning, whether it's environmental justice, whether it's in moving big projects like Riverfront Park into fruition.
Great park, terrific park.
And those are all key.
And it's funny, it never stops. How long have you been doing it?
I'm in my 21st year at Ironbound Community Corporation.
Lose any of the passion?
I am as energetic as ever right now. You know, when you open up a new Riverfront Park on the waterfront, Newark's first such development, which will be not only important to the Ironbound community, but important to the city of Newark, and important, as we just learned just recently, to providing resiliency and mitigation for storm surges.
That's right.
So when you can do things like that, when you get the governor to mandate that the local incinerator upgrade its technology to reduce its emissions, you know, when you get a new early childhood center, you get a $5 million donor building a new and expanding your early childhood center so that you can provide 0 to 5 services for children. These are just great things that just keep you going and motivating. And I have great staff and board, and you know, it's wonderful work.
Making a difference every day, which is why we're doing this series called Making a Difference. And I want to thank you, Joe Della Fave, from the Ironbound Community Corporation. I want to thank you for being with us, Joe. We appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Steve. It's always a pleasure.
Keep it up.
Oh, thank you.
One-on-one will continue with fascinating people making a difference right after this. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
There he is, Dr. Jock McCullough, who is cardiac surgeon at Hackensack University Medical Center. Good to see you, doctor.
Thank you very much for having us over.
You have brought some excellent props, some visuals that will really help us here. Folks, we're talking about some interesting stuff, cardiac stenosis and valve replacement, right?
Yeah, specifically, Steve, this is about aortic stenosis.
Aortic stenosis. Do me a favor, doctor. Talk about what viewers are seeing right now. You see what they're seeing. Describe it.
Yeah, this is a
It's like
cutaway.
you're a weatherman right now. Go ahead.
This is a cutaway view of the heart. And what we're going to talk about today is aortic stenosis, or narrowing of the aortic valve. This is currently the most common valve disease that we have in this country and in the world. And the problem with a narrowed aortic valve is that there's no medical therapy for it. Once you develop severe aortic stenosis, your long-term survival becomes quite limited. And if you can't have an open aortic valve replacement, then your prognosis, you're not going to do well. There's no good prognosis.
Where is it here? Where's the
So the aortic valve is this valve here. And in the standard operation, we would put you on a heart-lung machine, divert the blood flow from your heart, open the aorta, cut out the old aortic valve, and put a new one in. Now, there are some patients who are just too elderly or frail or have too many other medical problems that they would not survive that operation.
They are not candidates for that open
operation or open aortic valve replacement, and they're deemed inoperable.
What do you do with them?
They're just palliative care, honestly, Steve. You can try and take some fluid off of their body with Lasix or diuretic, and that's about it. And that's very temporizing, and it's a difficult life for them. They really don't survive.
Okay, but for some others, right? Let's talk about some other options here.
So just in the last year in this country, we've had approved a transcatheter valve. We have a new
transcatheter valve.
A transcatheter heart valve. And ingeniously,
I can put this away now?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
We have a way to put in a new heart valve without a heart-lung machine, without an incision down the front of your chest, in very frail or by definition inoperable patients, patients too sick to be operated on by traditional methods. We'll take well, just to give you an idea of what a narrowed valve would feel like if you try and put your finger, that's a normal valve. And how easy
I'm going to take my finger, as you told me to do before, and describe what it should feel like.
Exactly. You can see how easy it is for the blood to pass through the normal valve.
So my finger's passing through, you could see, and that's the way it should be.
Exactly.
Because what's going on in there?
Normally, the normal aortic valve leaflets have the consistency of tissue paper, and they open up widely when your heart squeezes and it pumps the blood out to your body.
This is healthy.
That's a healthy valve.
Now we're going to move to
a disease valve. As you get older, the valve leaflet's calcified. The trauma from the blood and the constant beating they take cause these leaflets to develop calcification and stenosis. Now,
stenosis, is that a closing?
It's a narrowing. That's exactly what it is. And when your heart tries to squeeze against this narrowed valve, try and put your finger through that narrowed valve, you can see how much more difficult it is. As it tries to get through that narrowed valve, it cannot, and all the blood backs up.
Guys, I'm actually trying to push my finger through, and it finally comes through, and now I can't even get it out.
Yeah.
What's going on in real life there?
So in real life, as the heart squeezes and tries to get through that narrowed valve, it cannot, and the blood backs up into the lungs. They feel very, very short of breath, and they can't exert themselves in any way. So now they're too sick to have a regular operation. What we've been able to do is take a aortic valve replacement.
All right, an aortic valve replacement. What is it? Is that what it's called? What's the procedure called?
Well, this is a prosthetic or artificial aortic valve. The procedure that we're talking about today is called transcatheter aortic valve replacement.
Say it again.
Transcatheter aortic valve replacement.
Is there an acronym for it?
TAVR.
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 T-A-V-R. T-A-V-R.
Exactly.
If you guys want to Google it, look it up. It's T-A-V-R. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is revolutionary. We've taken a regular aortic valve that we would normally replace with open surgery, put it on a collapsible frame. We wrap it around a balloon, which we can put on a small catheter going through an artery in your leg. We can snake that up around into the aortic valve, blow open the balloon, and leave this behind, leaving you with a wide open pathway for the blood to follow now. And the congestive heart failure, the fluid backing up into the lungs is all alleviated without the heart-lung machine and without all the trauma of an open heart operation.
Wow.
So people who were felt to be inoperable now are not. And the results have been paradigm shifting, to use a...
But one of the things that's really amazing about this, Doctor, we were talking about this before we got on the air, is you said a fair number of people who are experiencing this
aortic stenosis
don't know it?
They know it. They may have been told they have aortic stenosis. The problem, Steve, is that the studies have shown that up to 40% of patients with a narrowed aortic valve who could benefit from getting a new valve are not sent for surgery.
Why?
Either their primary care physicians think they're too old or frail, they're not aware of the new technology, the patient themselves or their family think there's no way they could undergo open heart surgery. And the big problem, as we keep saying, is that there's no medicine for this. You know, it's a mechanical problem. It has a mechanical solution.
Someone says, give me the right pill.
There's no pill for aortic stenosis. Nothing will reverse this. It's a mechanical problem for which there's only a mechanical solution. 2 years ago, we didn't have one. And now this is truly, revolutionary.
The technology here is driving the protocol.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biomaterials, the things that would allow you to create this valve are, certainly space age, that you can wrap this around a catheter and go up through your leg. When I first saw this about 12 years ago in a movie on a dog animal, I said there's no way this ever becomes prime time.
You said no way.
Absolutely not.
And here it is, prime time.
Here it is. And I'm doing it, we do it at Hackensack 2 or 3 times a week now. And we've done it in patients upwards of 95 years old, patients over 90 who have previous heart surgery. Many of them are able to go straight home. They don't have to go to cardiac rehab, and they do really quite well.
Dr. Jock McCullough, this is good stuff. You're a cardiac surgeon. The technology is moving forward, but physicians and patients have to stay with it, and that's why you have to get important information, and you provided it. And I want to thank you very much for being here. The doctor is in the house.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Now let's continue the conversation about this and other important topics and issues on Facebook. Visit my page at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, working for great public schools for every child. Investors Bank. PSE&G, committed to improving New Jersey's economy and strengthening its communities. New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship. The law firm of GIBBONS, P.C. Health First New Jersey. COHNDREZNICK, providing accounting, tax, and advisory services for more than 90 years. And by NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan. Turn a dream into a degree. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger and NJ.com, Everything Jersey. And by NJ Biz, All Business, All New Jersey. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.
Since 1865, we've sought to deliver the very best possible medical care to the people of New Jersey. Today, you'll find that mission made real in every facet of the state's largest healthcare system, with world-renowned doctors using the most advanced technology and techniques, pioneering a new path to better care. We are Barnabas Health, a new name for the next great century of medicine. Barnabas Health, every day extraordinary.
Hello, I'm Rafael P. Roman.
And I'm Steve Adubato.
Join us every week on New Jersey Capitol Report.
Because we'll ask the questions that you want and need answered.
Airing on NJTV, 13 and WHYY. Check your local listings.